What's up, beautiful people? In this one, we're going to be checking out something a lot of you are very interested in, and I am too. It is titled Ashleigh Merchant Explains How She Discovered and Investigated Fani Willis Nathan Wade's Relationship. This one, I'm curious. Let's get to it. Let's check it out.
You have to file with Fulton County.
So how'd you learn about this relationship between Mr. Wade? I think this has been acknowledged now by both parties, correct?
It has, yes.
It's a dispute as to when it began, but it's acknowledged that they had I don't know if they still do, but at least had a romantic relationship.
Yes, that's
How'd you figure that out? How'd you find out?
So at first, I knew Mr. Wade and I knew Miss Willis, and a lot of people in the community were a little surprised to see Nathan, Mr. Wade handling this case. It was just, a lot of people said that, and so a lot of people were talking about that, and it was kind of surprising, because it's not really, he does a lot of law practice, but this isn't what you would imagine him doing.
Did you ever see him have other billings? I mean, how do you have time to represent anybody else when he's billing, 24 hours a day to Fulton County?
He had other people working for him. Like, he had a law student working for him for a while, and then he had a first-year associate. So I'm assuming that they would probably do whatever other work he had.
Did you ever look at his calendar? Did you have access to that to see if it matched up?
No, I didn't have access to his calendar, and I didn't have access to their text messages. I mean, I was able to get his geolocation data through subpoena, but the one thing that really struck me is if I was accused of something and I was saying I didn't do it, I would download my phone. They have a system. It's called Celebrate, and Fulton County pays for it. City of Atlanta pays for it. It's literally a system that you can hook your phone into. I have an investigator that has it, and I have my clients do it all the time. You hook your phone up, and it can find deleted text. It can find everything, and you can limit it. You can say, I only want texts with this person. So if I was being accused of having an affair with someone, and I said it didn't start until April, and someone else said it started in October, the easiest thing to do is to, download that phone.
Ooh.
And for privacy concerns, you can file it under seal, but you could easily narrow it down and say,
Now the ladies know, man, you can't do fishy things anymore. Your wives have heard this
all the time. You hook your phone up, and it can find deleted text. It can find everything, and you can limit it. You can say, I only want texts with this person. So if I was being accused of having an affair with someone, and I said it didn't start until April, and someone else said it started in October, the easiest thing to do is
plug it in.
Download that phone. And for privacy concerns, you can file it under seal, but you could easily narrow it down and say, I want this timeline. I want all of our texts from, November 2021, and it would easily tell whether or not they were romantic in nature.
Before I leave the billing issues, did you ever compare Floyd and Cross's bills to Wade's to see if they were meeting together, like there was that meeting with teams, or what? Were they billing for the same meetings as well?
So I looked at that. One thing is, we don't have most of Floyd's. So Floyd has not billed in quite some time. So I didn't have his to compare, but I did look at Anna Cross's. The one day that I remember looking at was when they were in federal court to see, because so Ms. Cross was the one actually litigating in federal court. But Mr. Wade was sitting there with them at counsel table, and they both billed for that. I wanted to see if he billed for time that he was sitting in court waiting, because I know in Cobb County, for example, with appointed work, if we're sitting in court waiting, we can't bill unless we're actually doing something. Like, they won't pay for two people to sit there. And so I wanted to look at that. But they were both there in court that day.
What about the teams meeting where he billed for? Were either of them involved in that team, since they're also outside special counsel?
No, they were not. So all of those people were people who would not have itemized that.
Okay.
Employees.
Back to your uncovering the relationship.
Yes.
How did you figure it out?
So Terrence Bradley was Nathan Wade's law partner originally, and he was also his lawyer in the divorce. I did not at the time know that they had filed for divorce. I knew Nathan's wife. I knew both of them historically from Cobb County. I mean, people knew them in Cobb County. Mr. Bradley actually called me after an article. We were looking into the financial irregularities. We're looking into how much money had been paid, because everybody in the case was kind of like, why do you have special counsel?
Case?
On this case, yeah. Like,
was
why
Bradley still a partner with Wade at that time?
He was not. There was testimony that their partnership ended in summer of 2023. So it had just ended, is my understanding. And it's kind of unclear, like, what month. The testimony is very unclear as to when they actually. I have when they dissolved. I think it was September, but it's very unclear as to their partnership. And I will say their partnership was a loose partnership. They had a partnership with the bar, but they all had separate legal entities. So each of them were filed as the law office of Terrence Bradley, law office of Nathan Wade. They had some joint bank accounts, but then they had some separate bank accounts. So I don't really know the exact structure. It was a very loose type of organization. But they were working together. And so Terrence actually called me. He had seen an article where I had done open records with another lawyer, Manny Aurora, and we had uncovered how much money everybody had made. The news had gotten wind of that, and I later learned that the news had open records to get all of my open records. So every time I would get something, the news would get it, because I wondered how that happened. But so that somebody published that, and I had done some more open records. And Miss Willis actually called Mr. Bradley when I did these open records and said, they're looking into us. And he called me because he was worried about it. And so we had a conversation, and he actually asked me, do I need a lawyer? What's going on? What are you investigating? What's the parameters of this? And we had a conversation, and I said, well, my interests are different than yours. I represent Mr. Roman, so I can't advise you. That would be a conflict. He asked if John, my husband, could, and I said, no, that's a conflict too. If you feel like you need somebody, you need to talk to someone else. At the time, that was early in September. I had court in Cobb County, and I ran into Mr.
Oh, this has been going on for a long time. September. Wow. He's just unveiling or uncovering right now.
I was in Judge Harris's courtroom. I think it was either September 11th or 13th. I checked my calendar a week or so ago, but it was one of those dates. And I was taking a plea in front of Judge Harris, and Mr. Bradley was also there. Another lawyer who ultimately represented Mr. Bradley at our hearing, B.C. Chopra, he was there in court also. And then a friend of all of ours, who's a district attorney, his name is Bert Cohen, he was taking the plea with me. And Bert and I have known each other for a long time. Terrence, BC, everybody's known each other for a long time. We were all sitting in a conference room attached to that courtroom, waiting for the pleas, chit-chatting, took the plea, went back in, and Mr. Bradley essentially went through the whole thing and said, well, this is what's really happening. I had a notepad, and I took notes on all the things to ask for open records.
So what did he say was really happening when he said this is what's happening?
He said that they met at a judicial conference before. He was very specific that it was before she became DA, because that was one of the things that he couldn't remember when the judicial conference was, but he knew that it was before she became DA.
When did she become DA?
She became DA in it would have been January 2021.
Okay.
So she became DA January 1st, 2021, but she had a transition team leading up to that. So, and Mr. Wade was in charge of her transition team. So Mr. Bradley told me all of that. We met for about an hour. Said that they had been together. They met at this conference. Nathan was still married, and Mr. Bradley was upset because of what happened in the divorce. He was upset because they were still married, the Wades were still married, and he essentially just left her after meeting Miss Willis and dropping the kids off at college. So.
And Bradley was Wade's attorney in that divorce action you're talking about? Okay.
Yes, I didn't know that at the time.
But they were law partners.
They had been, yes. Okay. And I actually don't know if he was still his attorney when he talked to me. I don't know if he was or not.
Right.
Because at some point, Mr. Wade represented himself, and then he hired a different lawyer. So I didn't know anything about the divorce at that time.
So Bradley did not like the way Wade had treated his wife.
He did not.
But he represented him.
He did not like the way he had treated his wife. He didn't like what was happening in the divorce proceeding, yes. Okay. And, I remember specifically him saying, I handle my business, things like that. Like, that I don't leave my wife without alimony. Because this, and we talked about it. Miss Wade had been a stay-at-home mom for, they'd been married almost 30 years. And literally it was right after they dropped their youngest off at college that he said, move out, And so we went through, I was obviously interested in.
Oh, so Mr. Bradley had already exposed everything to her. No wonder because I asked in the previous video, why is it that she keeps saying, you told me, you remember you had told me. I'm like, when did he say these things? Like, it's like he was snitching, or he had snitched on himself already. So it means there was a whole conversation that happened previously. Now this makes sense. Yeah, because the interview was like, she was the testimony she was asking, remember you had told me, and Mr. Bradley was refusing to speak. It was like he was quiet now. After exposing everything, why are you quiet now?
what's happening? Walk me through this. And so he was telling me about the access cards, that Mr. Wade had access cards, telling me about the contracts, told me about their contract, that they had that Nathan had brought them the contract for the first appearance hearings. They had a contract for that. We didn't talk about that yet. That they had the contract for the taint work, and then ultimately that Nathan was hired as the attorney on this case. That they had been dating before, and he told me, they met at hotels. He would go to her place. And I remember him saying he needed to find her bestie, who they had a falling out. That's the person whose condo it was that they would meet at. And
did you later determine who that bestie was?
Yes, it was Robin Yeardy. It was not until sometime later that I determined that. It was very difficult to determine who that was because he did not remember her name. But
he knew her by sight?
He did.
Did he later confirm to you or identify who she was?
Yes. So I had sent him a couple pictures, or showed him a couple pictures of some other folks or
names.
This
was in January of 24, right before your motion?
It was. It may have even been after I filed the motion. It was around the time. It was either before or around the time, but it was in January. I had gotten some open records requests from the DA's office. They had a contract. Yep.
We just put on the screen some of the text messages that you produced to us.
Yes.
This is from your phone.
It is. And so
you're talking to Terrence Bradley, I see over there on the left.
Yes, and so when you see on the 14th, that one that's right in the middle that says file attachment with MIME type, that is a picture of her. So it doesn't show up on this, but it's actually, there's a picture of her.
So while you're texting, you're shooting him a picture to see if he can identify Robin Yeardy?
Yes.
Did he identify her?
He did, yes. He said, yes, that's her, that's the East Point. And he thought the apartment was in East Point. I later found out it was in Hapeville, but those are very close in close areas.
So he knew they would meet at that apartment?
He did, yes. He knew all about it. And it was hard to find Miss Yeardy. What happened, and she was Robin Bryant, and then she got married and was Yeardy. I did an open records request for a contract.
This got really messy real quick. A lot of things being exposed and a lot of names that people wouldn't want to get involved with. Oh my goodness. So all of this, bottom line, went back to, it's Donald Trump. Like, bottom line is Donald Trump. Everybody tried to shake this man. It's like there's something happening. This morning I heard speculations that the judge who ruled that Donald Trump should pay the $300 million, I believe, there's a video about him doing something to people in the gym. I don't understand. Like, it's like when they try to throw all of this at Donald Trump, the man is thriving. What's up with him? I said it, if he's guilty, throw him in jail. But if it's not, you should probably leave him alone at this point because it doesn't seem to be working out for anybody.
Contract that the DA's office got, it's called critical mention. She has I guess he's an attorney, but he's sort of in charge of communications. His name is Jeff DeSantis. He, right after Ms. Willis had opened the investigation in this case, that same week, he contracted a company called Critical Mention, which is a media monitoring company. They put a dollar figure basically on your media presence, and they give you these analytical reports. And they say, hey, you did great on MSNBC. That's $1 million worth of, stuff for your brand. The Fani Willis brand is doing well, or this phrase is doing well, things like that.
She had an employee in her office that was responsible for promoting her image, her publicity.
She had a publicly funded contract for this. So Jeff DeSantis contracted or called this company, and it's in the emails. I think I provided those as well, but contacted Critical Mention and said, we need to hire you to do media monitoring. And it was the same week that she had sent the letter to Raffensperger and Kemp about this case. Said, we need to have a contract to do media monitoring. Got $10,000 approved, paid $10,000 for a year contract for an annual contract.
Who approved that?
Jeff DeSantis' email said the county approved it, and his emails indicated that it was hard to get approved, that he had to really push, I think is what he said. There's some language to that, but the county paid for it.
Do other DAs do that?
I've never even heard of media monitoring. I didn't even know it existed. No. It was very shocking. And so I got some of the emails about this media monitoring. So I did open records, and again, once I got them, they shut me down and wouldn't give me anything else. But so these emails have attachments, they're PDFs, and you can see in the emails the hyperlink to them where you can actually see the analytical reports. That's what I wanted to get, and obviously nobody would give those to me. But these emails showed a trail where two people in her office, so Miss Willis, Mr. DeSantis, and then Robin Yeardy, were the ones that had access to this critical mention profile. It's like it's a platform that you can log into and see, how am I doing in the media.
What was Robin Yeardy's role in the DA's office?
She was a liaison between the news organizations. So she said that, like, when CNN, MSNBC wanted her on, they would call Robin and she would coordinate it. She would do her hair and makeup, and then she would coordinate her interviews. But so how I found Robin was I'm going through these emails, and all of a sudden I see an email from Mr. DeSantis saying, take Robin off of this account. She's no longer with the office. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's her. And so I found a picture of her, and I asked Terrence, is that her? Because I found out she had been fired or been let go or had quit or whatever it was. And so that's how I was able to figure out who Robin Yeardy was. Then we were able to run her, run her information, get an address.
Now she knows why she was fired. Oh my goodness. You see a lot of entanglements. Things are going to come out, things that probably shouldn't be out.
And so that's how I was able to figure out who Robin Yeardy was. Then we were able to run her, run her information, get an address, and that's how we were able to narrow down where this hateful condo was.
So that's where basically Miss Willis and Mr. Wade would meet for their relationship.
Yes. But Mr. Bradley told me at that first meeting that they would meet at hotels. He told me about a lot of travel. I mean, he detailed, he detailed a lot of stuff. He said that they traveled to Texas, they traveled to Florida, a lot of different travel. He said Belize. He specifically said Belize, a cruise, the Bahamas, things like that.
And you were later able to verify that through other subpoenas or open records requests or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, she even said she paid for the vacation with cash. I'm not going to forget that. I had cash in my house. I paid with cash. I paid him back with cash. Maybe I'm making a big deal out of that, but it's kind of like what she said. It's similar.
I was able to, I subpoenaed bank records, I subpoenaed credit card records, and then I actually subpoenaed the travel agencies that Mr. Wade used for some of those trips. He used two of the cruises that they took, he used a travel agency. So there was a cruise to the Bahamas, I got through a travel agency. There was a trip to Aruba that I got through the travel agency. And then there was another cruise, I think that one's to the Bahamas also, that I got through a different travel agency. And then his credit cards are the ones that showed all the Belize trips.
And they showed that he was buying the tickets for both himself and Miss Willis.
Oh yes, the credit card statements. So because I guess he used a travel agency, his credit card statements actually had her name and seat number and all that on it.
Okay.
So there was no disputing.
Clear it was paid for by him on his credit cards?
Yes. Oh yes.
Is this the document you gave us from the Capital One there?
It is, yes. And there you can see, so Clara Bowman is Mr. Wade's mom. So this was the cruise that happened October 31st, around that date. Mr. Wade paid for Miss Willis, Mr. Wade, and then his mother's plane tickets, and then also their cruise.
It's also crazy how much information the government has about you. Yeah, doesn't this scare you a little bit? Especially as you said, you can just plug your phone in and download everything, even the ones you deleted. So there's no running away. If you commit a crime, you're done. They'll find out. So don't commit a crime. And also, why do they have all of these things about people?
Cruise, their cruise receipt. I think that one was Royal Caribbean.
Okay. So your summary here showing the trips, we know that in late October they took a cruise to the Bahamas, and this is from his financial records. He paid for this for both tickets.
Yes, this is from his financial records, and I tried to be, there were a lot of Ubers and things like that. I did not include things like that I wasn't positive. I wanted to be under-inclusive, not over-inclusive.
And then you show the trip to Aruba, another one to Bahamas, one to Belize, one to Napa Valley, California.
Yes.
These are all from October 22 up till May of 23.
Yes.
Okay. This is a document you produced to us?
Yes.
This summary, is this something?
Yeah, that's a lot of travel. October until May. Maybe not a lot.
Prepared.
No, it's a summary.
Okay.
But how much do they pay these guys?
And so you discovered that and verified its accuracy through these credit card receipts, et cetera?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. Do either of them deny these trips occurred?
No, not at all.
And so is this the impropriety, the financial impropriety of getting financial benefit from the job that he's paying for her way on these trips with money
Yes.
that she's paying him and approving?
This is the what I would call undisputed. You know, the some of the other stuff on his credit cards, it looks like there's trips to Charlotte and Florida and other things like that. But this is what we could undisputed say was with Miss Willis.
Okay, guys, that is a lot. It's just a lot. Fani Willis, I don't know what is going on, but I hope you're vindicated if you're innocent. Otherwise, there's gonna be consequences. A lot of it, because a lot of entanglements. People are mad at you, and also she now has openly stated that, you know, Nathan left the wife because of you. Now the wife is watching and has seen this interview, so it's gonna be a lot. Like oh my goodness! Last time I saw people making, I told you in a video, right, that lots of people are making videos about her, and the naming, the negativity attached to her name is just wild all over the internet. Somebody said, DA, corrupt DA Fani Willis mounting. Seems like she's been doing a lot of mounting. I'm just paraphrasing. But on YouTube, people said that. A lot of negative connotations around her name. And it's a lot. It's not good. It's not looking good. I don't want to go ahead and give my verdict or what I think is going to happen. I feel like it's almost very clear already. At this point, it's quite clear. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. You guys are the smart ones, the educated ones, the people who live in these situations. Feel free to talk to me in the comment section. If there's anything you want to add, correct or critique, let me know. And also, I'm going to go look into the judge case for the 350, is it 350 or 400? I'm hearing $400 million now. I'll go look into that one and I'll bring you updates. That's from the Attorney General of I think the case with Letitia James and all of that. I'll go look into that one and I'll bring it to you. Smash the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.